Hi, I'm Hedgeye's founder and CEO, Keith McCullough. Good news, the Hedgeye Investing Summit is back. We're super excited about this one as always. The first week of October, I'll be hosting in-depth conversations with the smartest minds in investing. Some of my favorite people like Liz Ann Saunders, Kyle Bass, and Grant Williams, just to name a few. We'll be discussing the big stuff, the big trends impacting markets in the days, weeks, and months to come. You don't want to miss this one. Registration's free. How good's that? You won't hear pro-to-pro conversations like this anywhere else, anytime. The only thing I'm certain of is that the Federal Reserve is going to look like that they've lied to people, and that's a major problem. In addition to the issues that they already have in terms of insider trading or front running or not, what do you think? Do you think that they are at the point? Like a lot of us, I'm a Fed critic, obviously, but I think for the right reasons. At this point, you can't analyze anything, and you're front running with your own PAs. I mean, if the Fed was ever at the wrong spot in terms of public distrust, where I got them, it's now.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, and it's interesting because you talk about what you talked about there. Wall Street isn't the real world, and so Wall Street tends to look at. There are two problems. One, we tend to look at everything as a data point and as a chart, and we extrapolate them, and we look at the pictures, and we try and figure out where things are going. But they're numbers on charts. One of the things about Wall Street is that it's provided people with a standard of living that means that the kind of marginal inflation is something that they notice, certainly, but it's not going to change their behaviors necessarily.
Right.
At the higher echelons of Wall Street, that super yacht goes up 10%, maybe you end up not buying another one. But in terms of grocery, you're going to feel the pinch and go, wow, this was really expensive this year, but it's not going to change behaviors. However, that changes very quickly. As you move down the socioeconomic curve, it becomes a huge problem. We're talking about food here, right? We're talking about food and shelter, the basics, and power. And so, the Fed find themselves at a place where do we want to be looked upon as lying to the public, or do we want to be looked upon as incompetent? And we got it wrong, blatantly wrong. I mean, it's a tough choice.
Well,
it's a tough choice.
But this flipped in the night. And again, I'm not saying it's the 1970s. I'm saying that there's a flip coming because there is no data to support the prior premise. Zero. So, and it's not just the Fed. I mean, I was just looking up this guy's name. This guy Brian Deese, who made plenty of retweet waves on my handle when he said it. He's the head of the National Economic Council at this point. Younger guy. He's like, well, if you back all that stuff out that you just said, Grant, including food, there's no inflation. What are you talking about? But he's he's a Democrat. Obviously, but there was a flip, right? I mean, this guy looks like he's unequivocally partisan, obviously, but unaware maybe and willing to say anything. But in the 1970s, it changed, right? Like the same guy with the same job in the Nixon administration was a Republican instead of a Democrat. And I don't know if it matters what the difference is. Would call inflation a hydra-headed monster that will not go away. So that's what I'm wondering. Like, is that actually going to be what these guys have to flip to say within 6 months? I doubt it, but that would be interesting.
Well, think about it. What it comes down to are votes, ultimately, right? That's what all this comes down to. And if inflation is the thing that is potentially causing the most people to flip their vote, then it will have to be tackled, and it will be called a hydra-headed monster, and it will be something we have to get under control, right? Because you're pandering to the people that you're hurting the most, and that's one of the big dangers here. Not coming from the Fed, but coming from administration. And with the Powell reconfirmation hearing coming out, and all the stuff coming out about Kaplan and Rosengren and Clarida and all the stuff that's going on, which, look, any of us that have spent any time in this business know whether they can technically do what they did or not, it's wrong. We all know it's wrong.
Yeah,
it's not morally right, and they should and do know better, frankly, right? There's no argument about that whatsoever. And they can point to the regulators and say, well, technically, no, bullshit. I'm afraid that's just not right. Yeah. But when you've got these problems, and you've got an administration that is desperately trying to bring in a much more progressive agenda. They're flirting with MMT. They want to, they're looking at $3.5 trillion stimulus check. You have an opportunity here to remake the Federal Reserve in the way that the Trump administration remade the Supreme Court. And I would argue that having the right Federal Reserve Board is way more important, particularly in the short term, than having the right Supreme Court. These aren't lifetime appointments,
Right.
but you get the right guys in at the right time, and you'll be amazed at what kind of progressive agendas you can get through the Federal Reserve.
That I have not thought of that at all. But if you want to be a real conspiracy theorist, then they all knew all along that they were going to put up their hand and say, "I'm out." So you get those people in to their seats.
Look, let's not even call it a conspiracy. Let's not even label it a conspiracy. Let's just say it's pure fluke. Doesn't really matter. The timing is either well chosen or it's very helpful. It doesn't matter which.
Yeah, it's opportunity.
But you do have an opportunity now potentially to stack the board with darts.
Wow, that's a good point.
And
really good point.
Look, that will change everything in terms of inflation. You can expect A, inflation to pick up much faster, and B, the measures that they have to take on the other end of it to get it under control to become that much more draconian.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. Think about what the Fed could look like, within less than a year from now. You'd be Lyle Brainerd instead of Powell, joined at the hip with the Treasury, with who she worked with prior, which is Janet Yellen, and then instead of Rosengren and Kaplan, you have people that are like, "Oh, I would never trade. I'm doing this for the better good of humanity."
Yeah,
like this.
Yeah.
This is, oh God.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a strong possibility at this point. And like I said, I think people realize now, people in government realize that having a compliant Fed is arguably the single biggest tailwind you can possibly have. Yeah. So, maybe we should just turn the Eccles building into a giant dove loft and fill it full of them. But I suspect that's going to be the thing that we have to watch out for.
Well, I mean, I don't think that there's a chance, and I certainly wouldn't put any money on it, even as an outside chance that Powell is going to be back in his seat, given what just happened with, 3 of his senior guys getting nailed and him signing off on the investigation. He should investigate himself. He bailed out his own position in municipal bonds, and then was asked about it. I don't know if you saw that the other day, under oath, and he just waved it off. Like, yeah, I thought, that I called compliance and they said it was fine. But it wasn't fine, Jay. It was
and he knows that. Look, Keith, I mean, he knows that, right? This is, we are in the post-consequence world, unfortunately, right? That's what we inhabit now. And the kind of brazenness of all these guys is rooted in years of there being no consequences for any kind of malfeasance. You on the same day you read about Kaplan and Rosengren, you read about a Citibank trader having to disgorge 6 times the profits he made from an insider trade where he made 36 grand or something. It's laughable, but people in power just have that brazenness now that there won't be any. And if I get caught, nothing's going to happen to me. I'm too important, I'm too powerful, and I can just brazen it out, and I can resign and go on my way. I mean, the fact that Kaplan and these guys were trading like this when I forget which one, I think it's Kaplan, is already supposedly a billionaire, and he's trying to make a couple of extra million by trading in and out. I mean, it's a really bad look at the very best.
Hey there, Hedgeye Nation, or if you're not part of Hedgeye Nation, thanks for watching Hedgeye on YouTube. If you haven't already, make sure to click on the button below there. Subscribe to our YouTube page. You can also follow the link in the description to our website to get even more great investing content.